What's up mga kaang? So, hello. So, I am Ma'am Agapen. Welcome to my research writing series, episode 2. Last episode, we discussed about the types and an overview about research writing. But for this episode, I will be skipping to writing the RRL because my students need this right now. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, assuming that you have already formulated your research questions and your statement of the problem, which will be part of your chapter 1 or the introduction of your research paper, where do you think you will get the answers to these questions? Of course, before you conduct data gathering procedure, you have to look for other sources. You get it from yourself and you get it from other published written works containing people's ideas, facts, and information regarding that topic or your subject matter. So this is where you write your review of related literature. RRL, or writing your review of related literature, is a very time-consuming activity in conducting a research. It takes so many resources, references, so many nights reading or visiting the library or searching the internet, browsing, surfing some journals. In doing your RRL, you need to read a lot and you need to write more. So what is an RRL? An RRL, or the review of related literature, is an oral or written record of man's significant experiences that are artistically conveyed in a prosaic or a straightforward manner. It is an analysis of man's written or spoken knowledge of the world. In doing your RRL, you interpret, you merge, and fuse your thinking with the author's ideas. Pag sinabi nating review, you revisit, you understand, you interpret ideas of other people, and you merge that with your ideas as the researcher, of course based on facts as well. So there are two types or two styles or approaches of RRL. We have the traditional review of literature and the scientific review of literature. The traditional review of literature is usually present in undergraduate and yung mga high school research studies because it is simpler and easier to use. In traditional review of literature, you summarize present forms of knowledge on a specific subject. It aims to give an expanded or new understanding of an existing work. You summarize and you expand existing literature study that is related to your research topic. There are different types of traditional review of literature. It could be conceptual review, which is the analysis of concepts or ideas to give meaning to some national or world issues. You just analyze a certain concept. Critical review, you criticize certain theories or hypotheses and examines meanings and results of their application to situation. Third, we have state-of-the-art review, which makes the researcher deal with the latest research studies on the subject. So you look for the research studies that are updated. Fourth, expert review, you encourage a well-known expert to do the RRL because of the influence of a certain ideology, paradigm, or belief on him or her. And lastly, we have the scoping review, which prepares a situation for a future research work in the form of project making about community development, government policies, and health service, among others. Among these types, the most common is conceptual review. Overall, traditional review is where you combine and summarize existing studies that are related to your research topic. Now, the second approach is the systematic review of literature. This is more complicated because first, it is methodological. It involves sequential acts of a review of related literature. So, unlike the traditional review of literature, na wala siya talagang as in certain method, yung systematic review, it requires you to go through the following steps. First is you need to have a clear understanding of the research questions, since they will tell you what to collect and where to obtain those data you want to collect. Second, you plan your manner of obtaining the data. Third, after you plan your method, you do the literature search. Of course, using the keywords, you look for the needed information from all sources of knowledge. Then, using a certain standard, you determine which data, studies, or sources of knowledge are valuable. So here, you focus more on the scientific information, the methods of a certain study related to your research topic. And also, you determine the methodological soundness of the research studies. You summarize what you have gathered from various sources of data. For traditional review, the structure of the summary resembles that of an essay. Para siyang essay form. For systematic, the structure is based on research questions. Yun nga, yung traditional, para siyang essay, para siyang summary. Yung sa systematic, parang research question, then answer based on other research studies, ganun. Regardless of the approach or the style, an RRL should have 3 parts. The introduction of your literature review method, the headings and the subheadings to indicate the right placement of your supporting statements, and then the summary to concisely restate your main point. Assuming that we have already chosen what style or approach of RRL are we going to use, we undergo now the process of writing your RRL. First is, you search for the literature. How do we search? Of course, first, you devote your time in researching for sources of knowledge, for information to answer your research questions, or to support your assumptions regarding your research topic. Where do you search for the literature? You can search it on general references, primary sources, secondary sources. And how do we do that? First is, of course, you choose the previous research findings that are closely related to your topic. And you give more weight to research studies done by people who are expert in that certain field. You consider sources that use mostly primary data rather than secondary data. And you should prefer getting information from peer-reviewed materials than from general materials. Yung peer-reviewed materials at yung mga research studies that have been approved by journals and peers who are connected to the research topic. In searching a literature, usually you go to libraries or you browse the internet. And sometimes, students especially, they tend to use Wikipedia as their reference. Now, is Wikipedia a viable source of information? You may find valuable materials in Wikipedia, but it is not as dependable as other sources like the journals because it can be edited by anyone. So, instead of using Wikipedia as the source talaga, if you scroll down the Wikipedia page, you will see the references on the bottom part of the page. And then you use those references instead. You visit those references and it will redirect you to sites that have more credible information. But always make sure that those sources are peer-reviewed or the authors of that certain article are expert in that field. There are so many databases where you can search for articles or literatures or studies related to your research topic. So just use the most updated and the most reliable source of information. Now, after you search for the literature, the second step in doing your RRL is to read the source material. We use our HOTS, our higher order thinking skills or higher order thinking strategies of predicting, analyzing, criticizing, generalizing, interpreting, concluding, evaluating, applying, creating, whatsoever. Now, why is it important to read the source material first? Kasi, pag sinight lang natin siya without reading that source material, it's possible that it's not actually related to your research topic. Not because your key term is stated in that article means it's already credible or it could be used as your related literature. You need to read thoroughly. You criticize first the information before you copy or before you use it as your related literature or related studies. So if you read and you understand the information comprehensively, it allows you to modify, to summarize, to reconstruct the information. After you search for the literature, after you read the source material, now you will be writing the review. In writing the review, you don't copy-paste. Never ever copy-paste without citing your source because that is plagiarism. You paraphrase and you summarize the ideas. Understand that material so that you will be able to grasp it and reconstruct it in a way that you yourself as a researcher will understand that information. Also, make effective changes, not only on the language structure or the format, but also on the quality of ideas incorporated in the summary. You establish your claim and support it with other references or research studies So these are some of the active words that you may use and some of the transitional devices that you may use to link and express your ideas. Now let us move on to citation. Of course, if you're going to use other related studies and literatures for your RRL, you need to cite your sources. How do we do that? We will be needing an in-text citation, or where references are written within the main body of the text. In making an in-text citation, you don't write the whole title of the article, you only write the last name of the author and the year it was published. So there are two types of citation. We have integral citation and the non-integral citation. Integral citation, you use active verbs like claim, assert, argues, states, etc. It expresses the author's stand, mental position, and attitude or opinion. So you prioritize or you emphasize the author, not the article. Example, one study by Manalo 2015 reveals, or the latest work of blah 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 asserts, like that. While in non-integral citation, you stress the piece of information rather than the owner of the ideas. Kung sa integral citation, you emphasize the author, in non-integral citation, you emphasize the piece of information rather than the author. Example, the Code of Ethics for Intercultural Competence give 4 ways by which people from different cultural background can harmoniously relate themselves with one another. De la Cruz 2015. So here, the name of the author is placed on the last part of the sentence. While in integral citation, you mention first the name of the author before you put on your piece of information. So those are the two types or the two styles of citation. There are different patterns of citation. The first pattern is the summary. Summary is the shortened version of the original piece. Then we have the paraphrase, wherein you rephrase or you explaining the text using your own words. Another pattern of citation is the short direct quotation, wherein you use only a part of the author's ideas or a part of the author's sentence. It should not exceed 40 words. Pag nag-exceed doon, it will be long direct quotation, which I will discuss after this. So in short direct quotation, you give the page number where you get that information or the text, and of course, syempre, yung author. Again, it should not exceed 40 words. Pag mag-exceed na ng 40 words, you will be using long direct quotation or the block quotation, or also called extra. Long direct quotation, pag kinopy-paste mo na yung buong paragraph. But you can only use long direct quotation only if the idea is quite essential. Kailangan ba talaga yung idea na yan, yung dapat ba buong paragraph na yan i-include mo doon? If the idea is refutable or arguable, if the sentence is ambiguous or has multiple meanings, pag hindi buo yung paragraph na gagamitin mo, magkakaroon siya ng ibang meaning. If there is a strong possibility that questions may be raised about the citation, and if it is an excellent idea that to make it a part of your paper will bring prestige and credibility to your entire work. Only use long direct quotation if it is necessary. Hindi dahil tinatamad ka, basta ka na lang dyan mag-copy-paste ng one paragraph from a certain article, then put it in your RL. Only use it if these criteria are met. Don't forget to cite your sources always. Do not plagiarize because plagiarism is a crime. And lastly, tips in finding related literature. First, be updated. Cite the latest source. Preferably, articles that were published within 5 years. Hindi yung mga 1990s pa, 1960s pa. Second is establish your claim. Once you establish your claim, you find supporting studies or supporting literature. Third is to know your key terms. Search for studies by typing these key terms in your search engine. And then lastly, take note important details as you read. If you find research materials that are related to your topic, as you read, take note of the important details and understand it comprehensively. Alright, so doing RRL is a very complicated activity, what we have established earlier, but you must know how satisfying it is to find a certain article or a certain research study that is really related to your study and that could support your study. And imagine if your research studies get published later on, those will be used by future researchers as well. Yung mga pinagpuyatan mo at mga pinag-cram nyo ng ilang gabi, diba? Nothing comes easy, but it will be fun. Imagine nyo na lang na nagsisearch kayo or nagsistalk kayo ng crush nyo para mas ini-enjoy nyo yung process. Dapat ganun din tayo in research writing. We are interested, we are motivated to look for information because we want to know more about a certain topic. So I hope that you have learned something from me today that is all about doing your review of related literature. Again, I am not an expert, but I hope you have learned something from me. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye!